All right, England go early. Steve Borthwick has named his team to take on the All Blacks this weekend, a match that, in my opinion, will end up defining certainly England's November and even could go a long way in how we view their whole 2025. So welcome back to the channel. The England team is out, the matchday 23. And as there has been throughout this autumn so far, there's a fair bit to unpack and get into, I think. So have your say in the comments section. What do you make of this England team? No Tommy Freeman, no Ollie Chesham. They both drop out injured. George Ford is on the bench. Sorry, George Ford starts, but it's a really strong bench, 6 British and Irish Lions. As I say, lots of different things to get into. Have your say in the comments section, and whilst you're here, if you're not already, I'd love it if you subscribe to the channel, and if you feel so obliged, like the video and then just boost it to as many rugby fans on YouTube as we can get to. All right, this is the team that they've gone with. Many of you may well have seen it already. As I say, George Ford starting at fly half. That means there's no place for Finn Smith in the matchday 23. Marcus Smith is on the bench. No Ollie Chesham, so Alex Coles continues again in the second row alongside Maro Itoje. There's 7 changes to the starting team, which sees Finn Baxter, Jamie George, Maro Itoje and Sam Underhill all come into the pack. And in the backline, it's Tom Roebuck, Freddie Stewart and George Ford. Those are your 7 changes. It's really interesting, this. And as I say, one of the things that stand out to me, which is funny when you've got kind of a starting team, but it is that bench. I think such a feature for England so far this year has been, or so far particularly this November, and maybe the year, but in the last couple of games, the impact of that bench has been such a contrast to what we saw 12 months ago. Do you remember those games in November, particularly against Australia and New Zealand? So frustrating. They were so close, they were almost there, and then they were losing. And they were losing in the final 20 minutes, often when they came into that period of the game winning. And it's been a total difference in the last 2 weeks where England have been leading, but the games have been tight. It's felt like they've been really evenly balanced, and England's bench has made the difference. And I wondered what they were going to do for this game. The reason it fascinated me for this match was because I thought you start Tom Curry against the All Blacks. You start your best front row, Ellis Genge, Will Stewart against the All Blacks. And what is that going to do to the England bench when you have all of your best players starting? I wondered what the balance would be. And I didn't, fair play actually to Steve Borthwick and the coaches, I didn't necessarily expect 6 British and Irish Lions to be amongst your replacements, but a 6-2 bench split, that's what they've done. I think that's been absolutely massive for England. Let's chat about fly half. Those of you that watched the video I did from Twickenham on Saturday night, I said I would have picked Finn Smith at fly half because of his defensive abilities. In all honesty, and for anyone who has been watching the channel for a while, who has heard me speak about George Ford, I love George Ford. It's not something I'm worried about. I think England have such good fly half options. I think you could make a good case for Finn Smith, for George Ford, even Marcus Smith, who it doesn't look like England are particularly using as a fly half at the moment. So I'm not worried that it's George Ford. And I think the reason that they have picked George Ford is because of his game management. And Finn Smith is an excellent game manager as well, but in George Ford, you've got 100 capper, a guy that you put absolute faith in to go out and execute your game plan against the All Blacks. I think that's the reason that he has been selected at 10. So I think those are a couple of the standouts. I mentioned Chesham and Freeman. I mean, they're big losses, aren't they? Like British and Irish Lions, test British and Irish Lions players. But we've been speaking about this England team and the strength in depth, and I do think you are continuing to look at England matchday 23s and seeing a squad that has more depth, and it gets put to the test. And sometimes these things happen in the same way that the Springboks on the weekend had to play a big chunk of that game with Lou de Jager sent off. Sometimes you miss some of your best players. They get injured ahead of big games. It's a great test. Alex Coles continues, what a chance for him. And Tom Roebuck, I think, has been excellent in his last few appearances for England. So I'll run through the team overall. Finn Baxter, Jamie George and Joe Hayes. I feel like the development of Joe Hayes and Finn Baxter is clearly a real focus of this November in particular, and more generally, I think, for England at the moment. We know Ellis Genge and Will Stewart are England's best 2 props at loose head and tight head. But what then happens below them? And I think developing that strength in depth is so crucial at the moment. I mean, it was you could say it was the reason England lost that World Cup semi-final against South Africa, even if you think that's a little bit too strong. It was certainly one of the reasons, was the replacement front row came on and England fell apart. They are looking to build depth there. both now on 16 caps. So excited to see them go again from the start. And then you've got Genge and Stewart coming on in the final, 20, half an hour. We'll see when they come on. And then in the middle of them, you've got Jamie George, who is bags of experience, bags of quality as well. Itoje obviously comes back in, Alex Coles as well. I think it's really interesting and says an awful lot, actually, that Guy Pepper continues in that back row. When you think about Tom Curry not being there, Chandler Cunningham-South, I thought, played pretty well against Fiji, but he's also on the bench. It says an awful lot, I think, about the potential of Guy Pepper and also how he's playing at the moment and how he's viewed internally with England, how important he is and how important a player he could be going forward, that he keeps his place for a game of this magnitude. So I love that he's at 6. And Sam Underhill. Sam Underhill is a funny player, isn't he? He's 43 caps. He's had loads of injuries. But more often than not, when he is fit and available, he plays and he plays in the biggest games. Going way back to England's run to the World Cup final in 2019, some of their best performances that they've had, Sam Underhill has been in that back row. He's got the best tackle technique of any player in England, I think. He's got the best tackle technique, arguably, of any back rower in the world. He's in that conversation anyway. So I love that he's back. And Ben Earl at 8 is an excellent option. What it does mean, and it's maybe worth mentioning this here, is Chandler Cunningham-South is, I presume, covering second row with no Ollie Chesham. Chesham and Martin being injured does leave England a little light in that area. Now, Chandler Cunningham-South is a big, abrasive, in-your-face forward. Are we going to see him have to play in the second row, or do you think Coles and Itoje will do 80? I mean, Itoje will do 80 as long as he doesn't get injured. Do you think that will be the plan for Alex Coles as well? It was against Fiji, it could well be again. But that's the one thing probably of this England team that you could argue they're a little bit light because of injuries is second row cover, I guess. But Henry Pollock, Tom Curry, Will Stewart, Ellis Genge, Luke Cowan-Dickie. 5 lines off your bench, isn't too bad. So Mitchell continues at 9. I've spoken about George Ford. Dingwall and Lawrence in the centres. I've got no complaints there. Now, I've seen a few people chat about Fraser Dingwall's position. I think it would be way too early for me to change the 12. I think it's the right thing to stick with him here. It just would have felt like too much of a knee-jerk reaction. I think you stick with him, give him more game time. Lawrence you'd rather play at 13, so I've got no problem with that. And then the back three, Faye Reboso, when he's fit, he starts. Roebuck comes back in and Freddie Stewart as well. I think what this team selection points towards with Ford at 10, with Roebuck and Freddie Stewart coming into that back three, is kicking game. Tactical kicking game is going to be absolutely huge. It's been incredibly important for England in the last couple of games, particularly against Australia, a few of the tries they got there, but we also saw it against Fiji. I think we are going to see a real tactical battle here from England this weekend, which is really fascinating because they want to be a fast ball movement attacking team. I'm no doubt they will still try and play like that at times, but I think it's going to be about having a really astute game plan against this New Zealand side. Ben Spencer and Marcus Smith on your bench. Marcus Smith, his versatility gets him into the matchday 23, even if he isn't particularly considered as a fly half at the moment for England, which is what I feel I know they think of him as a fly half that can play fullback, but I think it's that fullback position in particular that they're focusing on. That's where we saw him start last week. He's on the bench because he covers multiple positions. Really interesting England team. Cannot wait for the game this weekend. Give me your views on the matchday 23 down below. I look forward to reading them, and I'll see you in the next one.